Welcome to Not Just Ads, the show where B2B brands discover how creator-led content drives pipeline, builds trust, and grows long-term brand equity. Each episode, we speak with business leaders, founders, and creators who are defining their categories. I'm your host, Marcus Sherwin, and this is the Creator Economy for B2B. Hello and welcome today to Not Just Ads, the Creator Economy for B2B. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Christian Weiss. Christian is a veteran in Autodesk. He's been there a number of years and he has a wealth of experience. His speciality is in ABM, but we'll touch a little bit about that on today, but also across B2B marketing as well. I'm delighted to have you on the show, Christian. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thanks. So you have been at Autodesk for a number of years, and it was a very different company when you joined as to what it is now. But maybe for the audience, you could just walk us back and kind of tell us in the first place maybe how you got into marketing, how your career started. Was it something that you always wanted to get into, or was it something you kind of discovered as you kind of continued in your career?
That's really interesting because my career is not a clear line as maybe many others would have. I left school when I was 15, started a 3-year training as a carpenter. And maybe that's where I have my pragmatism from. But then I thought, okay, now let's go back to school because I'm 18 now and that cannot be everything. And I went back to school, thought about, okay, now I can study something. What could it be? And the alphabetical list of the topics I can study started with architecture. And I thought, wow, that sounds nice. I should do that. Then I became an architect and the construction crisis started exactly when I finished my studies. So I added a business study with it so that I'm a bit more compatible with the labor market. And during that time, I thought, wow, marketing sounds really, really good. And my brother was in consulting, or still is. And he said to me, don't under or overestimate marketing because at the end, it's numbers, it's analytics, and this stuff, it's not just pictures and emotions. And I said, yeah, you don't know everything. You're a consultant, right? And at the end, all my day is now numbers, Excel, analytics, KPIs. And I think if you cannot explain what you do in numbers, it's difficult to build trust with your ecosystem.
Definitely, and get buy-in as well, I guess, internally if you can't justify the business impact. From when you joined Autodesk initially, you mentioned you trained as an architect. I suppose there is linkage, though. You were saying that's like kind of, I took a round way about it, but like a carpenter to an architect, then to studying marketing and Autodesk. So there is some connections there, I guess.
Definitely.
But I'd love to get your opinion in terms of how Autodesk, what was the business like when you joined it versus what it is today?
This is exactly the connection of how my marketing evolved and how I ended up also in ABM. When I started in marketing, it was a traditional field marketing. We had lots of money for telemarketing, lead generation, trade shows, and all that stuff. I was responsible for the architecture, engineering, construction market in the German-speaking market. We owned everything, the web page, landing pages, email marketing, advertising, print. We did PR together with agencies and so on. So really everything. This changed a lot and it changed aligned with the business model. So in that time, we sold software boxes, DVDs with handbooks. And it didn't matter if the customers used the software they bought or put it in the shelf. And then over time, we transitioned to a software as a service company, to subscription models, and so on. And then it definitely mattered. We had to learn to understand how the customers are thinking, how they use our software, are they happy or not? Because when they drop out of a subscription, we have to add more to grow, right? Or 2 more subscriptions at a different place. So we moved to account-based selling, and aligned with that, we moved also to account-based marketing. We called it ABSM, or account-based sales and marketing. I was like hyper motivated when I started like sharing this with the sales team. I was in Copenhagen, a sales leadership meeting, and I said, okay, for now, we have ABSM, we win together, we fail together. And so now we are one team. And then the sales leader said, what does ABSM mean? Another bullshit in marketing. And he said, when you fail, right? Not we. And then I learned, okay, so first of all, I have to fix my relationship with sales
Yeah.
so that we can start trusting each other and put the customer in the center. And I think this changed my marketing life completely. I'm in that world now for 8 years. I'm leading now the global center of excellence for ABM, which means we are working on, let's say, developing the marketers to reach next levels, also to build new workflows, new KPIs. How can we measure marketing so that it's really counted as impactful and not just as a bunch of numbers?
Yeah.
And this is basically my mission.
Right. It's super interesting with ABM, especially because it means different things to different companies, I think. And I guess your product and Autodesk has evolved into something that's quite complex as well in terms of how it's sold into companies as well. But what in terms of like if you're looking at, say, going into a market or even a particular type of set of accounts, what's a strategy or frameworks that like you've kind of developed over the years that you found is effective when you're looking at ABM?
So I think understand your customers is the biggest change between assumptions. I think the customers might like my story and my products to what do they actually need. And you can use a bunch of data for that. What I did in the beginning is I downloaded all the contacts we had, all the marketable contacts to reach out to them. And I looked at how many do I really know? How many, and it was like thousands and thousands and thousands of contacts. And of how many percent do I not actually know? Is that the person at the front desk, the housekeeping, or the CEO, or a vice president of construction? And 97% I didn't even know who that was. And I think this is the misunderstanding of when we do marketing. We think, okay, so many people received it, some clicked through, that's
Yeah.
it. We have to learn to understand the customers. And a mix is real experience and the other mix is data.
Yeah.
And for me, fixing the data is a lifelong project, and fixing the data is fundamental to do proper customer-centric marketing at the
Yeah.
end. I saw that when I was at my first ABM conference in San Francisco some years ago. One of the first slides I saw, someone was writing on it, fix your damn data first. And I thought,
Yeah.
we know everything, right? Then
Yeah.
I went home and I had a look and it was awful. And you cannot do marketing pretending you do like fishing with a spear, but at the end you stand in the dark, right? You're not hitting the fish at all.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like what you say. You're shooting in the dark. To get like a pilot going, what do you think is most useful? Then would you look at like kind of just taking a small set of accounts and then doing like say initial tests, or what do you find is like a kind of effective way to kind of scale it up rather than like building out some big program? Do you find it like kind of taking smaller steps initially is more effective?
The problem is ABM is not just another marketing method. It requires different, let's say, it requires all the support functions to understand what you do different now. Leads are getting less relevant. When you have an account with 100,000 employees,
Yeah,
a person who fills a form is not a signal for
no,
demand.
no, yeah,
And so all the behavior has to change internally before you go external. And this is a big change. When you scale too quick, you might scale it to death because you fail, right? You make mistakes, you fail, and you build new processes and fail constantly. That kills your trust you have maybe over years with your sales and extended teams. So my recommendation is start small, understand these accounts, build first tests and attempts and strategies, measure. So can you measure actually what you do different than before? Measurement is a big topic as well in ABM because not everything can be measured what the impact might be. And when you're really fine with doing that, make sure that also the workflows are 100% aligned with your sales team, for example, so that it's not an us and them, but a customer-centric approach. And then you can add more accounts and more accounts. But what's also misunderstood sometimes is a one-to-one ABM plan is like a fully blown marketing plan for a full market. That means a single marketer can maybe handle 3 to 4 to 5 accounts in total. as a one-to-one ABM. So you cannot just say, you do 20 and you do 20.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So therefore, it's also a resource question.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting as well because I guess like what you mentioned about every organization has a different org chart, and trying to figure that out, I guess it takes time. There's not always that just because two are in IT that they have a similar structure. They don't always have a similar structure. Do you, for ABM then, for mostly of the goals that you're doing, is it kind of, what would I say, net new business, or is it kind of reducing churn, or is it growing existing business within existing accounts, or kind of all of the above?
We have most of our ABM related accounts, or the accounts we do ABM for, are existing customers. We also do now ABM for non-customers, but here it's critical to understand you cannot just measure how many purchase because it takes time. The critical thing with ABM is we have to work several quarters ahead compared to sales. Sales is in the today and tomorrow.
Sure.
Or this and next quarter, but we have to think further ahead to be not too tactical. With non-customers, you have to start even earlier. Yeah, you cannot just send 5 emails, sales calls them 2 times, and then they love you
Yeah.
forever. So it takes longer. So the full funnel metrics. So to prove what you do as an impact for non-customers in ABM has to start very early. How many marketable contacts did I add? How many people do I know now? How big is my footprint? How engaged are they? And then the business starts later, right? And so you need significantly more patience.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the you're probably familiar with the Ehrenberg Bass Institute. They do a lot of stuff with B2BI in LinkedIn as well. And they came up with a study a while ago about like kind of this 95% of people aren't in market. And if you're just targeting the 5%, you're only kind of going after those that are in market, like, whereas you're not really shaping the demand in the future, like what you mentioned at the moment.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And this is, I think, the connection to brand. 80% of the purchase decision is made before anyone talks to sales.
Yeah.
And most of them are even like far out of market. They are not constantly in market. So a strong brand builds trust when they are not in market. So when they move in market, and there's another study which says they have 4 vendors in mind already before they even start discussing what to purchase. And if you're not on that list of the 4, this is where your brand has to land. Then all the rest happens. If you just constantly think of how can I move the 4 sheep over the fence, right? Then this is not long-term thinking, strategic marketing at all.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. In terms of when you mention about strategic marketing, then for positioning, there's, I guess, from some of the research, it's kind of one of the tactics that people go to sometimes is like, just update the creative and just update the creative regularly. But then there's another school of thought. It's like, actually, no, you shouldn't update the creative because it needs to kind of build these kind of mental availability, I think, is Ehrenberg, Bass, and Robin, their terminology of what they mentioned about it. But some of the research that they did, in particular to B2B, they were saying certain ads that are more effective are the ones that are in market for the longest, because people create this. They basically make a linkage when they're thinking about a door, and they make a linkage to these recurring kind of ad. I just wondered, from your perspective, do you see that when it comes down to stuff that's in market and more tactical? I know we're kind of talking more about tactics now, but do you see that that's kind of more effective in the long term? Or do you think that you should be more agile and just try and reiterate, like, on a more short-term basis based on the signals that you get from the market?
This is a very good question. I think when your advertising converts well, then it can run over time, right? On the other side, especially marketers are quickly bored of what they see, right? And sometimes I think, my God, they are really like spending their money. They must have money and unlimited money. What I'm recommending, I did that also with my team for a while ago. I took some competitors' ads and also success stories from them and just replaced their logo and put our stuff in. And when it's like totally random and you don't see the difference, then I think you have to work on your brand strategy.
Yeah.
And I think this, with AI and so on, it's even getting worse because so we are all bombarded with random stuff, and it's getting more and more difficult to cut through the noise. And here I think real creativity comes in, right? Repeating myself here to my colleagues as well. So I think we at B2B marketers, we are all in competition for attention of the buyer's committee. And if we all send the same random, boring story with the same random stock images and with just a different logo in yellow instead of black or blue, I think this doesn't make us interesting, right? So a good brand strategy starts with, how can I become interesting enough so that they really want to talk to me? And how can I build trust with what I'm communicating? So it's really easy stuff. The
Yeah.
question is really easy, but to solve it is really difficult.
Yeah. No, it's true. From what you see, what brands do you think are doing this well in not necessarily like your competitors but like in other B2B companies? Do you think there's any ones that are like, they're actually doing it really well from what you see?
Difficult. So I thought about this question and I didn't come up with one, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think, so what I really like is those who are consistent in
Yeah.
their advertising, in their personal relationships, on executive level, on user level, and also in the way how they approach me. So in the, like on LinkedIn and wherever. So when this is consistent, I think I'm super open to talk to them. But when it's like a hell of a mix and not consistent and whatever, then it's difficult to trust. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have to be
Yeah.
curious. That's what I thought about, right? But it's difficult to come up with a name.
No, it's true. And I think that's probably why in B2B, in some extent, there's probably huge opportunity for disruption. But at least from what I see, it seems to be coming from like challenger brands that maybe don't have as much kind of like restrictions in terms of what they can do. I think if you're a really well-established brand, there's more risks of being bold for it going wrong or for some issue. And I guess in B2B, the goal is like to be more conservative, because if you're more risky, you may, like, what's the saying, nobody gets fired for buying IBM. And there's a lot of truth to that in B2B. When you're looking at RPFs and stuff like that, it's like the safe option, the one that's in the top 4, is probably the one that goes. Maybe there's another few that have like very great features and everything like that, but the safe option, I don't know, maybe you disagree, but at least from what I've seen, that's kind of what you see.
I completely agree. And I think this is the opportunity for the smaller ones to be a bit more disruptive. What I often see is, and I learned it my own way, because so in my previous company, I said, marketing is not a democratic process. Not everyone can do marketing just like by penciling a logo and saying, this is now the brand, right? So my boss used it then the other way around and said, so stop the discussion. This is what I want. But very often in smaller companies, the marketing is done by the CEO or someone who thinks he knows everything, she knows everything. And I think here is the chance to be creative and disruptive. And smaller companies can make such a difference by behaving different, treating us different, and so on. And I'm completely open for those who are a bit more like emotional, a bit more sensitive of the audience.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting. I'd love to talk to you a little bit about, in terms of when you look at your positioning in the market, when you go in and around category and category entry points. You know, there's kind of a trail of thought now, and this is from my time in LinkedIn, around the category entry points, how people can associate their brands with certain mental recognitions, and like what we talked about, when then the brand that gets remembered is the one that gets on the list and so on. But from your perspective in ABM particularly, do you see that as like a kind of a play as well, of when you're looking at certain companies, that do you think it's like category entry points are something that's effective, or do you think it's a case by case basis?
I'm a bit torn in between. So on one side, our category, so we didn't have properly a category. We started with computer-aided design, AutoCAD, right? We have evolved from that, of course, and we are in so many different markets. We are in computer gaming, special effects, and in construction, and in whatever, mechanical engineering and car design. So it's difficult to find a CAD category where we would fit in. So we created our own category, basically. So it's the category of design and make. That fits well for us, but you have to like put big effort in to create it and establish it, right? Because also when you're the only one in this category, it's useless, right?
Yeah.
That makes it difficult, right?
Well, I suppose it's good in a way though, because you dictate the terms to the category. And what I mean by that is, I spoke with somebody recently on the podcast a while ago, and Robin Daniels, and he works for a company called Sensei, and they are a HR software company, but he'd worked in a number of different roles, but what he was saying was that like they wanted to create their own category, but they wanted to look and really research, so they placed it around human success, and they've now done like partnerships with cycling teams and kind of like matching the thing of like collaboration with a professional cycling team and how that links with human success. So I know it's a completely different example, but the reason I bring this up is I think it's really interesting when you see that you have a product that's applicable to a number of different industries, but that you can create your own category. You kind of dictate the terms then if people want to compete against you. Do you think from the time since you joined AutoCAD, or Autodesk, sorry, was that always kind of the goal, or was it something that just kind of developed organically over the years?
It developed, definitely.
Yeah.
So when I started, and it's actually this week, it's 19 years ago. I'm surprised how long I made
Wow.
it. But at this time, in the AEC industry where I was responsible for, we had 3 products, and
Yeah.
one was just like acquired. It was CAD. It was how do architects draw things, right? Or build houses. And at the end, we figured out the more the programs can deliver, the more they interact with other solutions, the more integrated they are in workflows, the less narrow their category can be, right?
Sure.
So at the end, we had to open it wider and wider to not just to position us, but also to explain to our customers what we can deliver. We figured out that we won an award, and someone who handed over this award said, "Oh, I didn't even know that you do that." Customers did not include us in RFPs because they didn't know that we offer this. So we
Okay.
had to widen the horizon from
Yeah.
a brand perspective, that they don't think we are AutoCAD, right? We are
Yeah.
far more than this.
Sure.
But in the mental, let's say,
Yeah.
shelf,
Yeah.
we were in the CAD systems, right?
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I suppose it's like the base, and then you're trying to build that awareness from outside as well. I'd love to talk to you a little bit around, there's one theme that we see now, and I'm just wondering if you see that in ABM, but this kind of explosion in the last 18 months of like the creators. And what I mean by that is that both professionals, VPs, CEOs of companies that are very active, particularly on LinkedIn, they're talking a lot about the brand, and you see it in very different sectors, from like finance to even government officials, B2B, industrial B2B. Do you see that as being effective or is it something that you're taking on at Autodesk as well? And has it been something that's useful that you found for ABM in particular of engaging certain types of accounts?
From my point of view, also here you have to cut through the noise, right? When 800 CEOs have 750 times the same story, then it's random and boring, right? So if you have something unique to share, perfect. Very often I see, especially with young startups, they are super competent, right? But at the end, this most competent person doesn't get it across the line or cannot
I know what you mean.
transport the story.
Yeah.
And I think the only recipe is practice, practice, and talk to humans, right?
Yeah.
Get out of your garage,
Yeah.
and get among people and practice how to position your story. Because I think these people are the brand in the beginning, right? They transport the entire story, and if they cannot, it's difficult to build trust, right? If you are just a nerd who has to talk to people who eat you for breakfast, right?
Yeah.
Then it's difficult, right? And also just sending messages, hey, let's build a strategic relationship.
Yeah.
That doesn't work, right?
No.
Everyone tries that.
Yeah. But how do you find it in terms of B2B community of like talking to peers? I know LinkedIn facilitate that with like CMO collectives, and they do stuff like that. But I just wondered, from your own perspective, do you think the B2B communities, are there any that you're a part of that you found useful, of like kind of networking with other peers or anything like that?
I'm relatively active on LinkedIn because for 2 reasons. One is I would like to learn from others, right? And especially in the early years of ABM, I didn't know, do I do everything wrong? What are
Yeah,
the others doing? And at the end, you build your own like
sure.
little world and you
Yeah,
forget to like match it with reality. And therefore, so I'm relatively well connected with other ABMers individually, but also in communities where I see, okay, here people talk, but the more channels you join, the less the less easy
yeah,
is to like consume all of that
sure.
content, right? So you have to be very selective at the end. So I'm more individually connected and in smaller groups where I have the people I can learn from compared to like all the big groups
Yeah.
where everyone positions everything and then the noise is big.
Yeah, exactly. There can be a lot of noise, that's for sure. I'd love to get your predictions for the future, Christian, in terms of where you see B2B. What's things that are lacking in B2B at the moment that you see? Obviously, we haven't talked about AI yet, and that's
Maybe
uh,
that's a good point to start.
yeah. But anything else that you see, you've been in the game a long time. So like anything in terms of the next, say, 6 to 18 to 24 months and trends that you see the market going in, and any things that you're excited about as well in the industry, but also in Autodesk as well.
So what I see is I have to learn to dislearn myself to think, I've seen this, I've done that, right? And all that stuff. Because I think I'm a very curious person. I'm very interactive. I need to bounce ideas and thoughts. And that keeps me entertained and motivated to think about new things and be open for that. I think when I observe LinkedIn and the market and podcasts and everything, I think AI is totally over and underestimated. So I think we talk too much about the possibilities and sometimes miss the train on the things where AI can really help me. So I think in understanding customers, customer behavior, interpreting information, making good assumptions and building a strategy, this is excellent. But companies who, let's say, think so AI will come, let's fire some people just because AI will do the messaging for me in the next 10 years. I think this is an overestimation because all the others do the same. And no one reads these emails because the other side has also engines to interpret the emails and tell me, okay, that was useless. Well, you don't need to
A lot
read.
of noise.
Therefore, I think there's enormous potential with AI. We will definitely need a lot of human creativity to think out of boxes, to think beyond what we can learn from what has already written in the internet and can be interpreted by AI. So I think this is extremely exciting times. On the other side, after COVID, people are back in meeting humans. So I see also for us more events coming. In my team, there are also very soon 2 people who are just organizing high-end meetings between our executives and the customers' executives. And I think this is an example. We need these human relationships also as part of building trust. And for me, this is significantly more valuable than anything else than what I can read in the internet. So I think events, personal interactions and connections will grow again. And also here, the potential is to create relationships on eye level so that relationship building is not outsourced to marketing. It's the job of executives and it's the job of thought leaders and so on. This cannot be outsourced.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think especially with the face-to-face meeting, um, I noticed that as well. The value of facilitating or like just getting the right people in the room together, you won't get the same outcome if you just have like a Zoom call or whatever it may be. I think especially now, I don't know if you see it, but from what I've seen in the last, say, 6 to 9 months, these in-person meetings, but on all shapes and sizes, whether they're like very senior C-suite level of like a dinner or something like kind of even round table breakfasts, there's a huge amount of events going on now. And I think people get a lot of value from that because, AI and the tools are great and they do a lot of the kind of admin work that, we probably didn't really like before. But I think it's not a replicate of like just going out and meeting people and figuring out what the challenges are and are there similar challenges or what they may be.
I completely agree. So let's get the admin stuff to AI
Yeah.
and get more efficient so that we have more time and brain power to build long-term relationships. And I think you cannot tell me that you're understanding your customer when you're not talking to them on all
Yeah.
levels, right?
Yeah.
And also to show appreciation, right? You cannot say, call me when you are ready for the signature. For the rest, sorry, I'm busy.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
No, not at all. What are, in terms of any interesting events that you've seen, and what I mean by events is in terms of the format of the events, anything exciting or anything unusual that you have? I'll give you one that I had after you tell me, but it was something interesting that I would have never thought of. Very simple, but somebody told me about it recently. But I'd love to hear if you've heard of anything like just any kind of different format events that were new to you.
So sorry to say, but I'm very, very bad in going to events. So I'm a bit back to going to marketing conferences.
Yeah.
And that helps me also to see we are all in the same boat. We all have the
Sure.
same challenges, maybe some
Yeah.
here more, some there more on the other side, but we all face the same challenges. And this is what I really like. So I'm like, I really enjoy it. I'm like a golden retriever there and walking around and saying, hello, I know you now and whatever, not just from LinkedIn. And
Yeah.
people go to me and say, hey, you're Christian Weiss. And I said,
Yeah.
nice to meet you. We just connected on LinkedIn, right? But so the small pictures are sometimes misleading. And so this is what I really like and what's
Yeah.
super fancy. So I did not take this too hard, but on marketing events, the swag is the best you can go for because all the agencies and the vendors
Yeah, that's
know
true.
that marketers know what's good swag, right?
Yeah,
So I saw
exactly.
people like filling their
Yeah.
bags. And I went there without a bag because I knew how that will end up.
Yeah, no, it's
Very
always
low
nice
level.
to have the memorabilia. What are some of the standout shows, marketing shows that you've attended in Europe or abroad that stood out to you?
I went to like typical ABM conferences. The European ABM conference in Amsterdam this early spring. There will be another one in April next year. I went to the global ABM conference now some weeks ago in London. Some virtual roundtables. That's also something we cannot underestimate, right? When the right people are there, it's a much more open conversation because I'm not standing on stage and saying
Yeah.
I didn't fix it. But in a roundtable, I can. So that's also something I appreciate. Yeah, all the rest was smaller events. The Momentum ITSMA has also very good events, for example, where marketers can be among themselves and challenge
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah, no, there's so much. I think it's really trying to find what you get the most value from, and they come in all shapes and sizes. I had someone telling me recently they just did a breath work, like this breathing session with a number of different clients in like after a breakfast, and they found it everyone got great feedback. It was like one of the
Nice.
most original things I've heard in a while. Was I was quite. Yeah, I'd never heard of anything like that before. It's quite simple as well. But Christian, it was a pleasure talking with you. If anyone wants to find you, where are you most active? Where do you share updates about your own opinions about ABM, marketing, B2B? Where are you most active?
It's basically my own LinkedIn feed. I'm using this it's less about positioning myself. It's more about my own therapy, right? I'm writing my frustration off, or I'm thinking loud. I'm an extrovert, right? So I need to bounce thoughts and ideas and also frustrations. And so people can constantly challenge me or reach out there or
Yeah.
question and whatever. So I'm happy to be connected and interacting.
Great. All right. Well, we leave your details on the show notes. And Christian, thanks again for joining us. It was a pleasure talking with you today.
Likewise. Thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot, Christian.